All right, Christina, let's take a look at this problem. I don't have my stylus today, so I'm writing my finger, so I apologize in advance for the poor handwriting, but we'll try to make it work. This equation is going to give us a quadratic equation because the x times 8x will give us 8x squared, right? And to solve a quadratic equation in this module, our first step typically is going to be to put it into standard form. So I'm going to start by distributing the x across the parentheses to get rid of that. And then I'm going to move the 9 to the other side, because remember, my goal in standard form for a quadratic equation is to get that 0 on one side. Okay, so next I've got to make a decision about what strategy I'm going to use to solve this thing. The instructions in the problem say to use the quadratic formula, so that's a pretty good hint. But in general, you might try to factor this for a set. It's not going to factor, though, is what it boils down to. So what we need to do next is we need to figure out what our a, b, and c are, get ready to put them in the quadratic formula. So in this case, my a is 8, my b is 2, and my c is -9. Okay, so my quadratic formula, of course, looks like this. Okay, and we'll get ready to plug it in. Alright, so let's start to plug this in now to our formula. So we want to start with, the opposite of b. Since b is positive 2, I'm going to start with a -2, plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2a. Okay, some work to do inside the radical there, so we'll simplify there. 2 squared is 4. -4 times 8 is, well, the first thing that I like to do in this kind of a situation when I'm doing this kind of a multiplication is count my negatives. In this case, I've got 2 negatives in there in total, so I know it's going to be a positive when I go to put these things together. And then just 4 times 8 times 9 is 32 times 9 is 282? 280, hold on, let me throw that in my calculator real quick here. I don't want to make a mistake. So 288. Okay. So that is 292 when we add those together. And at this point, this becomes a module 2 problem. We've got to take that 292 and we've got to break it down. So we've got to simplify that square root of 292 using our module 2 technique. So let's do it. I'm going to just break it down. I'm going to use a prime factorization just like I did in module 2. So that's 2 times 146, which is 2 times 73. And 73 is probably prime. I mean, maybe something goes into it, but I definitely don't think it's going to have any pairs in there. So I'm not too worried about breaking that down any further. Remember, I'm looking for pairs in my prime factorization in order to pull anything out. I've got a couple of 2's, so I am going to be able to pull a 2 out of my radical, and then that 73, since it wasn't able to break down into any pairs, has got to stay in. Okay, and then our last step here is to recognize that all of our coefficients are even. They're all divisible by 2, so we can take that out. Divide everything by 2. You don't have to write that 1 if you don't want to. Probably a little simpler without it. Okay, and so we get something like that. And then, if you're doing it on paper, then this is fine for a final answer, but my math lab is going to want the 2 separate answers with the plus and minus, so remember we've got one more step to go. For that purpose, whoops, I forgot to divide the denominator by 2, so that's going to be an 8 on the bottom, okay? And -1 minus the square root of 73 over 8. Okay, and those will be our final answers. Okay, so hopefully this helps a little bit. Let me know if you have any other questions.